The question I have for you is this. It might sound abstract and a tangent, but it actually connects into this topic. And obviously, you're a big boy. You can figure out whether you can say something about TSM or whether you have to say it abstractly. My question would just be this. The thing I was thinking about in line of this topic is the famous thing about TSM during your tenure was that whole weird thing, which was always implied it would come from Reginald, which was the idea that he didn't want to import Koreans. Now, I know in the beginning he obviously did with Usboy and Loco and that, but like beyond that, there was the period where obviously they made use of having Double Lift and having Hortzer and Bjergs and it was mainly a Western team, right? And the logic was, whereas, even though it didn't often get pulled off, whereas Team Liquid and Cloud9 every year really did go to the Chovies and the fucking these super Koreans and make them the bid of like, come here now. Like they didn't say yes, but they did go for it basically. The implication was TSM sort of didn't see the value in that or didn't think it was a good long-term approach. What I wondered was, since you were the GM of TSM, was that a sentiment you shared? Like, did you think essentially it was a bad long-term strategy to import top Koreans? Like, was it, what do you think about that topic?
I think it's always kind of a give and take in terms of like, when you look at like how a team is going to perform, it's like a combination of like game skill, but it's also like multiplied by like their psych, their team ability, and all the other factors into making it work together, right? And I think that as much as we talk about how young the ecosystem is and how maybe not as professional the scene is overall, the worst part of it is like having coaching staff and all the resources in there to make it work. And if you're looking at like a traditional sports team, they've like gone through like the cycle of like all the coaches that know how to like integrate players, bring them on. They have the idea of like when you form a team, especially a new team, there's like the idea of Tuckman model, right? Where you go through like different stages like team development and how you get players from like forming to like helping them argue, create conflict, identify roles, and then getting to the next level. All of these concepts are still new to League of Legends and coaching in general, and most people still find the highest value in finding the best players that are going to be working in their system within like the confines of what they do and what their competencies are. And so you can see some teams who take the bet on getting higher skilled players from other regions because they may pan out, and some teams have the ability to be like, hey, we can actually find just like the best Western players and bring the most out of them. So I think everyone is making a different operational bet in terms of what they can get from the performance and balancing like the risk of each of those things. So bringing that back to TSM, especially in 2016, I think everyone, or like most of the leadership, including myself, at least at that time, had this idea that communication and being on the same page and being able to easily get a team from point A where they are to like working well together was more important. And we saw a lot of teams crash and burn because they weren't able to integrate Korean and foreign talent in. And so at that time, I think it made a lot more sense for us to continue looking for English-speaking Western players who align with our philosophies. But I think as time went on, and if at least TSM as an org had invested more into it, or even if other teams had invested more into like figuring out how to integrate these players in a way that makes more sense, then I do think that opening out and being able to look at talent from around the world is going to be super beneficial for you. And one example I can say for the future is Vietnam hasn't gone to MSI or Worlds for the last 2 years because of visa issues. You don't know the talent that's in there, and you're about to see the first, like, GAM didn't get to go to MSI. They're about to go to Worlds, and I think they're going to...
Well, they chose not to go to MSI, let's be clear.
Okay, yeah,
they chose not to go.
Yeah.
For political reasons, but yeah, sure.
Yeah. But like, if you're looking at min-maxing how much performance you can get out of a team and like the talent you can bring on, if you think you can bring on Vietnamese players into your ecosystem and program, there is an enormous amount of talent there that's untapped that you can get for really cheap, and you can just spend more on like coaching staff, managers, translators, and like build that system instead of spending like millions on players who might speak the same language but maybe aren't as comparable or might even be lower in skill. So
well, also, I mean, that's a way to, we've discussed this before on the show, but a way to actually fix LCS viewership is possibly to allow these minor regions not to count as import slots for major regions, which would allow a full Brazilian roster in the LCS. It would allow a full Vietnamese roster in the LCS. It would allow a full Turkish roster in the LCS. And they could, these teams could more or less be national representatives. You could actually build potentially, even though the viewership of VCS in Vietnam, as I understand, is very high right now, LCS still is going to have more money. And I think Vietnamese fans probably would watch a bunch of these games. Certainly Brazilian fans were. I mean, the joke this weekend was that the CBLOL playoff match had a higher viewership on the main stream than the C9 versus CLG match that was happening simultaneously. So I think that, especially because there already is infrastructure, like Immortals owns the MIBR brand. They could use the MIBR brand, which is extraordinarily popular in Brazil, to run a Brazilian all-star roster into the LCS. And that is I would think that would be great for viewership in the LCS.
Yeah, I mean, if you're trying to create a model where like economically it's possible to create leagues or a small subset of leagues that min-maxes skill and talent, I think that would make sense. I just don't know what it does to like each ecosystem when most of their best talent now leaves the region and goes to international region. I just don't have the answer.
Here's the thing. The Japanese baseball league is fine, buddy, even though all their best players go to the MLB. Like,
Sure.
The Korean baseball league is totally fine. Yeah, yes, some of the best players will leave. This is true. But I think the Brazilian fan base is so enthusiastic about their own leagues right now. It's like another question. It's like, did taking a bunch of the best players from Europe make, the Spanish league significantly worse in terms of viewership? If you have strong fandoms for your competitions within your region, it's not like 15 Brazilian players are going to go to the LCS. There just aren't enough slots for that, right? They're not good enough. But you could, in theory, create a 5 or 6 people from Brazil might be good enough to go to NA and compete, right?
Yeah. I'm not arguing that what the idea is bad. I'm just saying that there are
second and third order effects. Yeah, exactly. It's not as simple as what it provides to LCS. Like in this case, obviously the problem here is the joke is on a separate show, they could be having a discussion about like, well, now Brazil's weak, how do we make it better? Like they could be having the same discussion. And we just passed the buck to them essentially, haven't we? Oh, the other thing is the obvious angle you should do that they've missed out on is just make an all Canadian team. Call it sorry, yes, sorry. Surefire. Think about it.
I actually wonder what like an all-star Canadian team would look like for League of
You could
Legends.
actually make a good one, to be fair.
You could make a good one.
I mean, it's what like fucking Wild Turtle back in the day. Darshan, isn't he Canadian? I think he is. Licorice is.
Yeah. Huh.
There's a bunch of them. I mean, you could definitely make a what?
At one point in history,
Vulcan.
Yeah. I mean, you can have like you can have Vulcan, you can have JoJo, you can have Licorice. Yeah.
I don't know about Canadian junglers. I can't think of one off the top of my head. But anyway, I do think that.
Didn't he at one point have like Canadian citizenship? And he was a jungler.
He is a Canadian citizen. Okay. He is a Canadian citizen.
I never know which way around that is as to whether it's like he's just ethnically from Venezuela or if he ever was there. I've never bothered asking.
No,
the least interesting thing to ask.
He grew up until I think he was like 10 in Venezuela, and then he moved to Canada after that. So he is both. I think he's a dual citizen. He's definitely.
He must have had one of the most fucked up life experiences. So he grew up until 10 in Venezuela, moved to Canada, and then went to America and became a professional video game player. Like, it's no wonder he's one of the weirdest humans you'll ever meet. Because what a fucking origin story, I know. What an origin story he has.
But yeah, I think like if you're looking at how to solve some of the LCS issues in the short term, that this is a way to do it. And clearly making it so other regions, minor regions can compete is basically it's most beneficial to LCS. Like you're not going to see, maybe you see a little bit of it in LEC. You're not going to see any of it in LCK. I promise you that. Maybe they get a Vietnamese player or two. China, they've already had some Vietnamese imports that have been successful. But mostly that change of the rule would be almost purely to benefit.
All I'm saying, Monte, is look, if all ideas are on the table and Riot really wants to make a big balls play, I'll tell you right now how you make league viewership insane. Allow an all Chinese team in the LCK. One, the viewership will be amazing. Two, the whole internet will melt down and there will probably be war between China and Korea within the month. But aside from that, it's great. It's going to all be great. I wouldn't watch that.
Wouldn't an all Chinese team want to come to NA?
No, I mean, if you did the LCK, if you did the LCK equivalent.
I've seen some of the numbers that LPL teams are making and like what their league revenue model is and everything. I don't know if I'll qualify that saying that 5 good Chinese players are going to come to NA.
Like one, we meant LCK, and then 2, there was actually 5 Chinese players. We'll call LMQ, and they were better than TSM. Just because he got that bullshit Game 5 win, I don't care.
I mean, that was a different time.
That was before your time, to be fair.
No, that was in a time where what LPL and LCS looked drastically
Yes,
different.
Parth. By definition, everything in the past was a different time and wasn't right now. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
You got me on that one, mate. You nailed me on that one. You were as Johnny Depp's lawyer. You have nailed me to the cross on that one.
I understand, like, as a historian, you're like, let's just fix things right now by looking at things in the past and just hoping all the same assumptions carry through, but they don't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what you do instead is you just live your entire career and then go, see, everything I did, don't do that because you'd be an idiot to do that. And now do what I now say is really good, even though that goes against everything I did in the past. And what my owner said.
He didn't have complete authority. And also, I think looking back on LCS.
Complete authority, he's the general manager.
No. I mean,
not over the league or the entire ecosystem.
I never said that. I'm talking about TSM, mate. Okay. He didn't do any of these ideas in TSM, did he?
Absolutely. I have definitely made mistakes at TSM. I mean, what do you want me to say?
Something interesting?
For fun, I'm teaching like a class right now just for like people on like the amateur and academy side, like coaches and managers. And a lot of the classes is like, hey, I made this mistake. Don't do this when you go run a team. And I think it's fun because I think no one in the industry over the last 5 years in whatever role can claim like they did everything perfectly, and it's only by hopefully admitting to the mistakes and be like, hey, do this better. Where
I'm just waiting for Riot to do that. I mean, they kind of already have done that by this new Valorant franchising model, and the fact that the VCT Champions Tournament is GSL groups into double elim with the same number of teams at LoL Worlds. Like they're winking.
Gradually let the regions change the format and slowly build up. Yeah, true.
I actually do like the new Valorant format, which I think is a positive development. I just wish we'd see more changes faster to League of Legends. And we just admit that mistakes were made in the past, and that can't we just say that and then just have the nice thing now instead of having to wait more years for League of Legends to be fixed when it comes to format or these international competitions? Look, man, I welcome them bringing the VCT Champions format after they used it this year, and they're like, you see, guys, we realized that through running this format in Valorant that it is highly successful, and so after inventing it, we are bringing it to League of Legends. And also we realized that maybe it would be better to have international viewership on LCS, so we're gonna open it up and allow all these minor regions to compete with their full rosters in order to activate audiences in these various sectors. I'm just waiting for it, man. I can't wait.
Want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.